Hello, my fellow Extraordinary Americans. I'm Cosmos Dar, and this is Extraordinary America. What is Extraordinary America about? You see, American identity is about freedom, the opportunity for a better life, and the pursuit of happiness. However, most Americans are not free when it comes to the financial front. Most Americans are suffering from financial slavery due to loss of jobs, stagnant wages, inflation, and debt of all kinds. Wealth and income inequality runs rampant across America, and the middle class is all but disappeared. So what is Extraordinary America about? Extraordinary America is about the abolition of financial slavery. It is about the financial freedom of the 99%. It is about the nation of immigrants and descendants of immigrants awakening and unleashing the extraordinary within themselves and setting themselves free. The path to financial freedom is through entrepreneurship and investing on the light side. It is about financial education, not only when it comes to money in the monetary systems, but also in regards to how to start a business, investing, especially when it comes to precious metals and real estate. In this podcast, I interview guests, many of whom came from humble beginnings, to see how they did it and how they attained financial freedom in their own lives and how they did business. And it is my hope that you will be inspired and you will want to awaken extraordinary within yourselves and realize the American dream. Once again, welcome to Extraordinary America. Carol, are you there?
I am.
Carol, thank you so much for taking the time to do this podcast with me. I really appreciate you doing this.
Oh, thanks for having me, Cosmos.
So, Carol, can you tell me and the audience a little bit more about yourself, your background, and how you got started?
In which company?
In all of them, Iron Dog
Well,
Media, Vixens.
yeah, Moto Vixens is a company I started 12 years ago. And that one, it's been a difficult journey with that one because it's a male-dominated industry, as you know, with motorcycles. So breaking down those barriers was really interesting. But, once you kind of get your footing, then you can really start progressing and making headway. And I think leverage helped me a great deal in getting to, out of obscurity. Of course, I dealt with a great deal of resistance for a very long time. And now I'm at acceptance and possibly even admiration. So once I got that under my belt, I opened up a few other companies, Iron Dog Media, to help with people building leverage after my experience and how it's helped me. And then also Selenium Strategy Group, which, I help advise people who are either starting new businesses or would like to scale their business to create strategies.
So, Carol, I know that at one point you wanted to be a doctor, or like your parents wanted you to go to a different profession, and then from there you ended up becoming a business person and you got into entrepreneurship. So, can you tell me and the audience a little bit more about the transition of how you went from a more STEM-oriented career towards where you are right now?
Yeah, when you're raised in the Asian culture, you are dictated what you are going to achieve, right? And I think for my parents, it came down to honoring my parents. And my parents really wanted me to become a doctor. And I was really good at, science, mathematics. And so it was a natural transition in their minds. But my mom passed when I was 19, 20 years old. And when she passed, so did that particular drive and motivation to be a doctor. And at that point, I had never explored what I wanted to do because I never realized I had a choice, which kind of led me into, you know, creating my bucket list. Because by the time I was, 20, I had decided on a career change. And I instead got married, had kids. By the time I was in my 40s, I'm realizing I'm going through a divorce. I have two teenage children, and now I'm exactly in the same place I was 20 years prior. So, not having the ability to make choices when you're young, I think greatly stunts your growth professionally,
Mhm.
as well as personally. So, I took that moment to create a bucket list, and my mom passed when she was 47. So when you have a parent pass and, and they're so young and you're divorced now and you don't have a plan in sight or a path, all of a sudden you start thinking, well, shoot, I don't have very long if, my mom passed it when she was 47. My chances of getting cancer are that much greater. Maybe I need to get kind of a move on with what I'm wanting to plan, because it could be limited time, right? So I created that bucket list. And one of the things I had always wanted to do, because I was never adventurous growing up, I didn't have that luxury, was learning to ride a motorcycle. It scared the piss out of me. So, I figured, why not do it, right? I
Mhm.
have the opportunity now. So I did it. And I found that I loved it because it created a sense of freedom and accomplishment. And I gained confidence doing it, right? And that's what led me down that path of motorcycles. I never actually intended on making a business out of it. It naturally, organically evolved. And I made a business out of it. I really wanted to make my passion, my purpose, and my business. And that's how it all got started.
So, Carol, you talked about choice, and like normally in America, the conventional wisdom is we have the free will to do choices. But I know that from my own perspective, I came as an immigrant here to America, and I had like Indian parents, and then I had to face some similar situations. But then when I came to America, I realized that there's a whole other world where we're free to choose our destiny. So how did that like basically affect your life all together when it came to ultimately doing entrepreneurship? Because entrepreneurship require is the opposite of like being like a doctor or like doing one career track altogether. It requires a lot of freedom and a lot of like free way of thinking. So I'm just curious about that.
Oh yeah, and a lot of mistakes along the way. But they're all learning experiences. And you can't grow unless you face hardships. And you gain that wisdom and knowledge along the way with, people you surround yourself with. And I was lucky enough to hire a couple of advisors that have been very instrumental into developing me. And after, spending some time with them and really, really understanding their way of thinking, and the education they gave me was paramount to becoming what I currently have become.
So, Carol, what is like when you decided like to do these companies, right? And you're doing and the motorcycle company you had, like it's in a male-dominated field. What was your mindset going into it, knowing
I
that
didn't
it's
have one. At the time, I didn't have a plan, right? I just knew I loved it so much that being a woman and being a minority in that industry, I figured if I could find a way that would invite more women, not just to join, but create businesses around it. Because I don't think that anything should be unbalanced. There needs to be a male and a female mindset in everything. Because if it's too male dominated, then you're not inviting others to join. I don't believe in an exclusivity type of deal. I believe in inclusivity.
hmm. Yeah, but motorcycle in general, it's kind of like there's very few women over there, and it's kind of like a daunting task for most people to even be in that industry. So if you didn't have like a mindset, you went there. So my question is like, how did you go about dealing with the business and like dealing with all the other men, and like how did you go about succeeding even though the odds were against you in that field?
I was lucky enough to have those advisors during the time of like great resistance when, I dealt with them threatening my staff, literally calling them and emailing them and telling them not to be at my days. I had them pull my social media. So they must have made a claim that allowed them to pull me. So getting back into my social media was a task in itself. I treated at the time, it was really difficult to see kind of the silver lining in all this, but what it built in me was this resilience because I knew I wanted to do this. I knew that if I created the path, others would follow. And so that kind of was my driving force.
I mean, resilience and determination are very key traits in entrepreneurship, right? So, Carol, like for the listeners over here, like how would you develop resilience and determination if you're, let's say, starting out in a business, or is it something that is more inbuilt? and it's just something that you're born with?
No, everything can be learned. And I think it's important to surround yourself with people that have taken that journey and that path before you, right? It might not be in the same industry, but they've become successful because they've been persistent and resilient and they have the determination. And if they can instill that in you and teach you, right, then I think you can accomplish anything.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times, like perseverance, resilience, and determination, these are key traits in the field altogether. Um, but sometimes, like you could go, like there's like this concept, like I had like when I was like during my time, like talking with other entrepreneurs, it's about like pivoting versus like going through one path. And one of the questions I had for you, Carol, is when do you know to pivot versus going like using brute force and just going towards this one path till you succeed, or like at what point do you realize that you need to change strategies and all of that?
Well, if you have to use brute force, that's an indicator because I think that you can accomplish things like treading lightly, right? If you know it's going to disrupt, it's okay to disrupt as long as it doesn't hurt or harm other people, right? So, for instance, the guys were making it very difficult on me. I was kind of depressed about the whole thing. I wasn't sure how to move forward, but my advisors reminded me, if you're in a state of resistance, it's because you're doing something that's pissing somebody off. And now you're in a position of influence. So keep moving forward because eventually they'll fall off. And instead it'll be replaced with people that will fight that fight for you. And most recently, I had this really horrible moment at an award ceremony where I was sitting there with my boyfriend and he won his race. So obviously he was going up on the podium, right? And so he was basically talking about thanking me, thanking Moto Vixens and all those things. Well, at the end of the ceremony, and lots of people at that point had mentioned me, right? The race director made it a point to point out every other organization as being supporters of that particular race club, which really just hurt me because I was the one that helped them become successful at one point.
Mhm.
And being excluded from that was just kind of like them sticking the middle finger up at me, like, haha, see what I can do because I'm in a position of power. And they made it such a public statement that I I didn't know how to react. And I actually had my boyfriend drive me to my car at the end of the ceremony. And I said, I'm not joining everybody for dinner. I have to go home and I have to reflect. The next day, everybody was back up on the podium, but I had a lot of people that I had an effect in their life, and they went up and thanked me personally and thanked my company. So, in what he did in excluding me, other people defended me and stood up for me. So, his public statement that he thought was going to bring me down actually caused everybody else to get up there and thank me even more. So I actually invite resistance at this moment because the more you do to injure me publicly, other people come to my rescue.
So Carol, it's a very interesting, like this story is like incredible because it just shows human nature to a certain extent. But the your idea of resistance and like having like a positive as a positive attribute to it versus a negative, like that's something that I think that the audience can glean into because a lot of times when we think of resistance, we're afraid of it and we do not want to actually have resistance in our lives. But usually when you have resistance and you have the strength to overcome it, that's how we get to the next level. So like for the sake of the audience, how do you what kind of mindset should we have when it comes to like having obstacles and resistances in our life from your perspective?
Take a positive spin on it and don't react, reflect, then respond. Because I think most of us tend to be very reactionary, but that comes from an aspect of fear, right? And you really don't have a reason to be fearful. Things happen. We know that, right? But it's how we respond to it that makes a difference.
So, Carol, how did your perspective and resistance evolve over the years altogether? Like you've had so many like obstacles in your life over the period of time. So like from starting from like when you were like a teenager to like right now, like what is the progression of like how you looked at life and how you looked at obstacles in your life?
Oh, well, when you're young, right? Our basic needs are acceptance and approval. So we will do anything to be accepted in society. And so we'll conform to what we believe others want us to actually be. But that's not us. That's authentically not us. I mean, we live in the US. You have the freedom and the choice. Why are we making the choice to be like everyone else? We should be making a choice to be ourselves and then really shine a light on who we are instead of trying to conform and just blend into the background. That does nothing for us. So when I was young, I did exactly that, and it got me nowhere, right? All it got me was, oh, I think I'm supposed to do this next. I had no direction. I had no plan. And now I love resistance because it means I'm ticking somebody off, and they obviously don't like my success. And that's fine. You don't have to like my success at all. But I am going to overcome that negativity that you're trying to spread and completely like love the holy crap out of you, because I think that spreads a better message.
So, Carol, one of the things I realized in my own life is that sometimes for no reason at all, people will hate you, and then there'll also be people that love you for no reason at all. And it's nothing to do with you per se. It just has to do with like their perception of things, and something about you like makes them think about something negative about themselves, and then they want to project it. But it's something that is strange, and yet a lot of people like the reason I bring it up is because a lot of people want to be liked, right? Like they want to be liked by everybody. But if you're going to be wildly successful, you're going to have haters, and you're going to have people that are not going to like you for any reason at all. And you have to have a positive spin to it. But I don't know, like what are your thoughts on that matter?
Well, I think, you put your head down, you do what's right, and you do it for you, right? And when you do that with the greater scheme of things, like how you want to affect the world, how you want to impact the world, that's the greater message. So why are you worried about the little things when you should be worried about the big thing? It's a bigger
Yeah,
perspective.
I mean, like sometimes we all get so caught up in like the small things in the world, like we fail to see the 30,000 foot perspective. And I think that's when we start realizing that the small things don't matter. It's actually like when we have like a big strategy, that's when things come into perspective altogether, you know?
You have to be focused, right, on that. So why are you clouding your thoughts with these little things when you know the big picture and you know you need to remain focused? We have so many distractions in the world, right? We can't control that. What we can control is ourselves and our lives.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty true. A lot of people, there's also another thing that I realized from that is also like being a victim of circumstances. A lot of people, and this is applicable to entrepreneurship as well, is like a lot of people have a victim mentality, but it does not work well in entrepreneurship. Like you have to have the perspective that you are in control of your own fate and destiny, and then you're accountable for everything. But that's something that happens when we're doing business and all of that. But what are your thoughts on that, Carol?
So my boyfriend's really great about, creating concepts, right? And so one thing he says to me when I'm dealing with people is, first of all, you need to find out if they're competent. If they're competent, then you need to find out if they're accountable. And then most of all, you need to make sure they are of integrity. And those are the three things I measure people on.
Like when they're competent and they're accountable and they have integrity. So how would you know that they have these three things? Because a lot of
Well,
times
you have
people,
to work with them.
yeah, the reason I'm asking is because a lot of people in society they have this mask on where they pretend to be something that they're not, and then it's only over a period of time we find those things out.
Yeah, well, that's how it works, right? You've got to put a little bit of trust in them, and then find out, first of all, if they're competent. If they're not competent, then you don't even need to move to accountability anymore, right? Competency in what you do and what you say. If you are going to do something and you're going to do it well, then I want to see if you're accountable. If you give me a deadline and you meet that deadline, great. You've met, you've completed 2 steps. The third step is to find out if you're an integrous person.
So Carol, what is like the one revelation you've had in when it comes to all your years in entrepreneurship and business, like when it comes to business and relationships altogether? Like the one revelation or the one nugget you think is like the most important?
Listen to your intuition. I think your intuition is always telling you yes or no. It's just our own pride or our own ego gets in the way. And then we act on that instead of really listening to our intuition. It's there for a reason.
A lot of people would claim, Carol, that they don't have the intuition or like they don't know how to listen to it or what intuition is, you know?
Yeah. Well, then you obviously haven't cultivated that, right? And I think that deserves some time into looking and delving into it, because your intuition, what is in you from the minute you're born. You know if somebody's good, you know if somebody's bad. How many times has the hair on the back of your neck stood up or somebody's given you the chills?
Yeah.
That's an indicator, but we don't listen to it because somehow, somewhere, we're like, oh, that can't be, right? So you have to listen to your intuition. And I found that if I listen to my intuition, things go fairly well.
Yeah, it's funny like how like we do get those like we have the funny feeling in our stomach or we basically have like something's not right or something like is right and it doesn't make any sense, but more often than not it turns out to be true. And it's just something that's kind of like it's kind of it's unexplainable, but it just works for some reason.
Yeah, so I think it's important to spend some time tapping into that and understanding it, right? And you do, just like anything else, you have to test that constantly, because you won't know until you test that and you put that concept into your life and integrate it into your life.
Yeah, that's there. Like I think like when it comes to intuition, a lot of things that help with it, especially with regards to me, is like meditation. Because if you have like a calm emotional state, that I've realized that that helps with intuition a lot. Because when you have like a
Absolutely.
when you have like the calm, concentrated feeling, that's when intuition comes into play more often.
Yeah, and intuition helps you with creativity. When you have a clear mind, you can usually solve any problem.
Yeah, I think it was Einstein who basically said that he got his formula when he was in a kind of like a calm, really calm state, and then it was like a flash of knowledge that just came in.
I think, is he the one where he tells the story of he would put a ball in his hand and he would start to fall asleep, right? Because there's a brain, like something with your brain waves. You're in a certain state when your creativity is the highest. So he would hold on to that ball, fall asleep. And as he fell asleep, when he entered that state, the ball would hit the ground and wake him up. And he would have these moments of like brilliance and genius.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's him or not, but it's definitely something that has been documented. Like if you look at Mendeleev, for instance, right? He got his periodic table in a dream, but he was in a very calm state of mind, and basically, his intuition was in flow. But the basic point that I would want the audience to know is that yes, intuition does work, especially in business and relationships. But how do you cultivate it? That comes from like as you mentioned like practice and then
Yes.
working at it, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Carol, one of the questions that I wanted to ask you was about like your culture, like adapting to American culture from like the Chinese culture, and then uh, on integrating everything you know into like business and entrepreneurship. Like, how did you manage to do that? Like, where you had to like learn, like you're like in between these two worlds, and then you're just somehow managing to like integrate everything? Like, how did you go about doing that?
It was very awkward. As you know, traditions run very deep. And so being raised in a Asian culture and having like the superstitions and all the different disciplines, it's hard when you're born in the States because you see all your friends who were obviously all American, right? And they've always had choices when you would say, I can't go out because, I have to take music lessons, I have to do my studies, and I have to do, I've got to go to choir, I've got to do your parents booked you with things that they deemed important for your development. And maybe, and I get it. They only knew what they knew based on their own experience, right? And they thought they were doing the right thing. But I give my children all the freedom in the world. And I don't know what's better, giving them all the freedom in the world or being, part of two different cultures trying to integrate them.
Mhm.
Because at the end of the day, I think having the two cultures has really helped me understand and accept way more things than I would probably accept if I was only raised with just freedom, because freedom also comes with absolutes. You'll just be very black and white about things, no or yes, but you're not combining the two. And it doesn't come from what I believe is a state of grace, which is integrating things together to make it better for everyone. I don't think there's right or wrong, right? I think once you put them together, you can make a beautiful synergy. And I wasn't good at it in the beginning. I get it, but it takes time, to figure out where your sweet spot is.
Yeah, like the entire idea of like the sweet spot, like where like you have to have the perfect delicate balance. That is pretty difficult to do, but once you do it, it's almost like magical. You get things done in a very efficient way. It's almost I think where's that concept, the Zen Buddhist concept of like moderation or like balance is like this like the way of everything, you know?
Yeah, I think it's the samurais. The samurais are fierce warriors, right? But they realize too in the they're Japanese, obviously. In the Asian culture, they cultivate balance. So to keep them from being just warriors, they would make them sit down and do little tasks like make little dumplings because it requires patience and agility, right? And it focuses your mind in a different way so that you can become creative too. So it is always balancing the two, the masculine and the feminine. And that's where you get an individual that's well-rounded.
So, just for the sake of so that the audience can know more, like how do you balance the masculine and the feminine when it comes to business, and what does that look like,
Oh,
from your perspective?
well, feminine energy is a lot of I would like to say a lot of compromise, right? And masculine energy is brute force, right? So if you can combine the two, you now have an individual that can think through things, but can also fight when necessary, right?
Mhm.
And if I didn't have, let's just say, if I was overly dominant feminine, I wouldn't have fought for my position to be in the motorcycle world. Now, if I came to brute force and I was like this masculine energy, right? I would have gone in there and laid waste to everybody. And that's not the right way to do things either.
I mean, a lot of people in business think that's the right way, but yeah, I totally see your point.
Yeah. So that's how I combine the two.
Yeah, so basically, masculine and feminine, you have to have a balance of it, and like if you can combine the two in business, then that'll basically create more success than anything else.
Gives you an edge. Not everybody can do it. It's a delicate balance, right?
Like how would somebody go about balance? Because it seems really hard to do, but like it's so important to do it, you know? Like how would somebody balance that from your perspective?
Well, you got to determine, first of all, right? Are you more of one than the other, right? And I think a lot of it comes down to compassion and empathy. Those are things that help soften that masculine energy. And you don't want to be too feminine either, because then you're a doormat and you'll believe everything that comes along and you won't challenge situations. And then without a challenge, you don't grow.
Yeah, that is completely true about challenge and growth because without challenges, you wouldn't grow. And so I'm seeing your point about that, because either like in business, you either have people who are too masculine or people who are too feminine. And having that balance is so important, but it's just so hard to do.
Oh
But in
God, it's not easy. If it was easy, everyone could do it.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have like, because like we have these traditional schools, but they don't really teach you how to do this. Like, they don't even teach you much about entrepreneurship and business. It's just something that you learn through life experience.
Yeah,
And
life experience and guidance, I think. I've been very lucky to have advisors. And I have a lot of feminine energy, obviously, right? And so I would just give up, or I would feel like I'm a doormat, or I would just relinquish control to somebody. But they've helped cultivate it by challenging me and reminding me and showing me a different perspective. And I think that's helped really balance me, as well as my upbringing. I mean, I've had to let go of a lot of these limiting beliefs that I grew up with, thinking that I was, I belonged in a box and I've got to conform and I've got to do these things. And I realize I don't now. I realize I am most productive when I live outside of the box.
no, I mean, totally, Carol. And living outside the box is how you have to do entrepreneurship because if you're in the box you'll never get anything done. But
Nope.
Carol, on a different note, you are the embodiment of like an immigrant entrepreneur that came to America and had it made. And it's just like an amazing thing because American identity is all about the immigrant entrepreneurial identity. And then my question to you for the sake of the audience is, was it easy when you went about doing it, or what was like or did you get into like a flow where like was it the identity of America that made you who you are, or is it something that just naturally came to you?
I don't think it's a natural thing. I think life offers you opportunities. It's just when you choose to take the opportunities, and it doesn't offer the opportunities all the time, but sometimes it happens where it is magical, right? And truly unexpected. Like I never thought in a million years I would ever ride a motorcycle less than race, right? But it's taking, I guess if I could say anything, it's that life is an adventure. Are you part of the adventure? Or are you just existing? So if there's an opportunity to do something that's like way in left field, and you're like, I could never do that, do it. That could be your opportunity.
No, I mean totally, but how many times in life do we actually like take those chances and we don't do it out of fear? And it's something that like I've thought about it multiple times. Like there's so many times where we are afraid of doing something, like we want to do it and then we don't end up doing it, and then later on in life we have regrets.
Oh, I want to live life with no regrets. Like I want to go to my deathbed going, I've done everything that I thought of, I set my mind on, and even if I failed at it, I still did it.
I mean, that's like the right way to go about it, but a lot of people are just afraid of doing things. They want to play it safe and they go to their deathbeds with regrets. Like I
What's
think there's
safe?
like
What's safe in life? Honestly, what's safe?
you tell me, Carol,
Yeah,
because a lot
there's
because
nothing. People are seeking security in things that are truly not safe, right? Our society economics is based on fear. Think about insurance. Why do we buy insurance? Just in case, right? So it's fear based. It's not with a sense of taking a risk every now and then and seeing where it leads.
no, I mean for sure. I mean that's how that a lot of business models are based on fear. But it's basically coming down to a lot of most people tend to want to have security. They don't really want to take the risks to live out their dreams, because I mean, America is about realizing your dream, whatever it is, but how are you going to have your dream if you do not take those chances? If you're
Yeah.
just afraid all the time?
No risk, no reward.
Yeah, I mean, it's just something that I've just realized, like, because in this nation we have a lot of people that we talk about realizing the American dream, but we're just too afraid to take the chances to get there, to start a new business or to do something in life that's so spectacular that your dreams will be fulfilled, and you have to take those chances. And that's like essentially the entrepreneurial spirit.
Yes, it is. Absolutely.
So, Carol, there's a question I wanted to ask you. I know that you wrote a chapter in this book, this Amazon book, Strategic Growth for Leaders, 10 Success Keys to Elevate You to the Next Level. Could you tell me and the audience a little bit more about that and like what the chapter is about and all of that in general?
Well, I really don't want to give it away, but it's about vision and it's about strategy. So, when we go into business, sometimes we have our why, but we don't necessarily have our how, right? And that's okay. Like that's how I started the motorcycle business. I had no idea what I was going to do. I just knew I wanted to do this, right? To get there was a whole nother story, right? And boy, it was bumpy along the way because it is not a straight line to success. There's a lot of ups and downs. And honestly, if you have a why, that how evolves along the way. And along the way, you develop and evolve as a person so that you can meet that challenge when the time comes.
So, how would somebody go about creating their vision and strategy? Like, do they, and what is the process of them going about doing that?
Well, is there a need that you can see that you can provide? And is it number one, something that you love, right? Number two, does it make you feel like you're fulfilling a person's need and then number three, it becomes your purpose, right? So all these things play into creating that vision. And first of all, you've got to have passion for it because if you don't, there's going to be times when you want to throw in the towel. And because you have passion for it, you won't.
Yeah, that's some of the like overall themes I've noticed in all the interviews that I've done. Like all the entrepreneurs that I've talked to, they've always had vision, they've always had strategy, and they've always had passion for what they did. They also had resilience and determination. And these are the common traits that I see all throughout. And like they have different ways of going about the same thing, but ultimately they have these same themes. And it's just something that's like profound, like watching these patterns, and then the same patterns lead to success.
And it doesn't matter which industry, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be any industry, but if you have these same characteristics or these same traits, these same ways of thinking, and especially around vision, knowing your why, and that's actually the big one. Like when you're mentioning about the why, if it's a passionate why, it's like the foundation of everything.
Yeah, it's a really strong foundation to build any business on.
And usually, if it's very emotional, then it's done. You can go through any obstacles in life, but that's something that I've noticed.
Yeah. Yep, very true.
So, Carol, I know you've talked about Moto Vixens, but you also have another company called Iron Dog Media. Can you tell me the audience a little bit more about that and what that's about?
Sure. So Iron Dog Media came about in me developing my leverage. And I didn't realize how important leverage was in order to scale a business. And I guess most people don't. When my advisors first told me to start putting together a media kit, I just remember saying, I don't know why, because I'm nobody. But the idea is if you want to get out of obscurity and stop being a nobody, then you have to develop a tool of leverage, which is a media kit. So I did it. And then I started sending it out. And let's just base it on the motorcycle industry for now. I found that became very easy to get sponsors because you've taken the time and the effort and you have a place where you control the narrative. In that media kit, your bio is your story, and your story comes from your voice, which is very important. If you go to Wikipedia, what does Wikipedia do? It takes facts and then develops a story for you. So a media kit's the only place where you get to form your own story and convey that to the world. And then, of course, it also kind of gives brief synopses on all your other businesses, the things that you're doing, podcasts, and if you're an author, speaker, right? Whatever, right? It's a one place, but it is a huge anchor point when you send that to somebody, because somebody now sees that you've taken the time, energy, and effort to do it. So that's how that business came along, was from my experience with Moto Vixens, developing, my own leverage. So we do in Iron Dog Media, we do media kits, we do logos, we do branding, we do websites, you name it, right? We even host websites. So all this came from my experience as I was developing Moto Vixens. And then from that too came Selenium Strategy Group, because I curated and I learned and developed as a person so much that I found other people would find this knowledge, what's the word I'm looking for? Valuable.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's those three businesses. I have two other businesses also, but they're kind of in development stage right now. So a lot of juggling balls at the moment.
So,
Spin and play.
Carol, when you're talking about leverage and perception, especially like with regards to that, it's so important. And I myself have a digital media kit, and I took your help with that, of course. And I would recommend anybody that's listening to this to definitely reach out to you if they want to make a media kit themselves. But it is very important for leverage, because everything in life and in business is perception ultimately. And how somebody perceives you the first time they see you affects all the rest of their interactions with you as well, you know?
Right. And social media, unfortunately, has taken such a front seat with how people perceive you. And it's really easy to make yourself look successful on social media. But when you have a media kit, it tells people how successful you are.
No, for real. And Carol, how can our audience connect with you to get to know more about you and your business and everything that you do?
CarolCarpenterMedia.com is actually my media kit, but it has links to everything I've ever done or I'm currently a part of.
Okay, that sounds good. And Carol, I'm so grateful that you took the time to do this podcast with me and share your invaluable wisdom. And I do hope that you come back at a later time, you know?
Oh, absolutely. Anytime, Cosmos.
And I want to conclude this episode by letting my fellow extraordinary Americans know that, hey, look, there's an extraordinary within each and every one of us, and it's our duty to awaken it and unleash it. Until next time, bye for now.
Hey everyone, thank you for watching Extraordinary America. If you like what you see, please do subscribe to our podcast and share it with others. Remember that the best investment that you can make in your lifetime is in your own financial education, for it is knowledge that truly sets us free. Also, remember that inflation is diluting your purchasing power, which in turn increases financial bondage. The practical thing to do is to protect the loss of your purchasing power and invest in precious metals or the right cryptocurrencies. Lastly, never forget that you are an extraordinary American. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.